Hello, everybody. I'm Everton de Oliveira, the Professor Agua from the Groundwater Project. And I'm very glad to bring you another publication about biotic transformations. And I'm very pleased to introduce you to Bruce Rittmann. If you don't know him, you're missing. You should. Bruce Rittmann is a Regents Professor of Environmental Engineering, Director of the Biodesign Swiss Center for Environmental Biotechnology in Arizona State University in the United States. Welcome, Bruce. Thank you for participating on the Groundwater Project Initiative. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, how you started into groundwater and inorganic organic contaminants, please.
Yes, that's a good question. So it goes back to when I was a PhD student. So I was a PhD student at Stanford University back in the last part of the 1970s. And I had the great good fortune of working with Dr. Perry McCarty, who was the father of the field. And when I arrived, about the time I arrived at Stanford, Professor McCarty was just beginning a brand new project. It's the first project that he worked on having to do with groundwater. And really just about the first groundwater project that anybody did from the environmental engineering field. And we were interested in the recharge of the groundwater in the Palo Alto, California area using treated wastewater effluent. And so it was being injected into the ground, and we were going out to the field, and we were taking samples and measuring things, and we had also in parallel experiments going on and modeling going on in the laboratory. And it was a big project, but I was the person assigned to deal with the microbiological aspects, the biotransformation. So that was my PhD, and it was right at the beginning of the field. I mean, no one really had done anything in this area at all. And so I got really in on the metaphorical ground floor of the field. And so we discovered, of course, that the effluent, the treated effluent, had all kinds of organic things in it. Some of them, were well-known pollutants, others were emerging pollutants, but we found they were in the water, and we really wanted to know what happened to them. The other key aspect of this is that all of these were present at quite low concentrations, what we now call micropollutants. And so we were dealing with low concentrations of a mixture of different kinds of organic molecules, and we were dealing with them being injected into the aquifer, where there was a huge amount of surface area where biofilms would grow. So this is how I got into the field of biotransformations and biofilms and all of that. It all came together because of working in this initial project with Professor McCarty. Of course, since I continued to work in this area for most of my career, but of course expanded into many other areas in the field we now call environmental biotechnology.
Very good, very good. Like I mentioned to you, I started working with biotic transformations, and then I had to switch into only physical stuff, but I still like it very much. And biotic transformations are so important that some say that they are God's help to fix what we humans are doing wrongly here. Yeah. What do you think about it? And how is your book helping God's help?
Well, I don't know what God thinks about this, but it is true that we are relying on natural biological processes. And so one of the key things that we should understand about microorganisms is that they have an incredibly diverse metabolism, taken as a group, not necessarily every organism, but taken as a group. There's incredible diversity of things that they can biotransform, and they get some energy out of it, and it fuels them to grow and maintain themselves. And so what we want to do is we want to be partners with these microorganisms. We want to help them do what they want to do anyway. As I would say, the biotransformation business, it's a volunteer activity for the microorganisms. And the ones who are good at biotransforming what we want biotransformed, if we create the right conditions, they're going to be there, and they're going to do it. So it's a very natural system, and we simply have to understand what it is we want the microorganisms to do, how they can do it, so that we can create the conditions that will allow the right organisms to be there doing the right job that we want done. Yes.
Very good. I remember myself when I started. I used to say, like, I'm a geologist. I deal with dead stuff, rocks. Nothing is, but when you start dealing with biology, as the word says, is living things. So this metabolism, co-metabolisms, are a bit scary for engineers or geologists like me. So, well, I don't think they should. What do you think? What is the basic knowledge that is necessary to better profit from your book?
Yeah, right. And so actually in the book is organized to sort of lay it out from the most basic fundamentals, and then you get into the details. And so the most basic fundamental of microorganisms is the same basic fundamentals as for you and me. I mean, we are living biological organisms, and what we do in terms of metabolism is basically the same as the microorganisms. We're just a lot bigger and more complicated. But if you look at it from the human point of view, what do we need to do? We need to eat and we need to breathe. Well, the microorganisms do the same thing. And so we eat food and then we breathe oxygen. And now if we put this in terms of the microorganisms and what's in the book and the real fundamentals, the what we call food for the microorganisms, the name we give it is the electron donor substrate. We use the word substrate in our business to mean some chemical material that the microorganisms use to get energy and grow. And so the electron donor substrate contains electrons that the microorganisms can access. These are high energy electrons. And they then extract those electrons from the electron donor and transfer them to the electron acceptor substrate. So for the humans, food is the electron donor, and oxygen that we breathe is the electron acceptor. We have a very complex system in the human to get those electrons from one place to the other. It's a lot simpler in microorganisms, but it's the same basic principle. And it's the basic chemistry that the movement of the electrons from the donor to the acceptor generates energy. And we, either humans or we, with the organisms, know how to harvest that energy into forms that are useful on it. So metabolism is just taking electrons from the donor to the acceptor, harvesting the energy, and then you use the energy to grow the organisms and sustain them. So that's the basics of life. So when you're looking at a microbial process, in biotransformations, you've got to say, well, now what's the electron donor? What's going to give them the electrons and give them the food? And what's the electron acceptor? Where are they going to put those electrons so that they get some energy? And so we frame everything around what's the donor, what's the acceptor, and then electrons will move. And microorganisms, because they're very small and they're very simple, can use a tremendous array of different donors and different acceptors. Humans can't do this. We're too complicated, we're too big, and we can only use, organic. We recognize as food as a donor and oxygen as an acceptor, and nothing else works for us. But microorganisms, because they're small and simple, can use a whole array. And that's why we humans are such good partners with the microorganisms, because we have the intellect to understand how that works, and they have this credible metabolic diversity that can do all these things if we know how to set it up for them properly.
Very good, and it is, and I believe that this is very well presented in your book and makes simple for engineers to understand. Thank you for your work. So, how is your book Biotic Transformations of Organic Contaminants is structured, and why?
Yeah. Yes, well, it's structured very similar to our conversation now. So the beginning of it is laying out the most fundamental principles, like I said, about the transfer of the electrons from the donor to the acceptor and harvesting the energy and things like that, because that's the foundation for everything. And then once we have that foundation in place, then we start to look at some of the special things about biotransformations in the groundwater environment. For example, things like a lot of the contaminants are at very low concentrations. They're micropollutants. So you're dealing with not much stuff. Not you're kind of starving the organisms because the concentrations of their food is very low. But we're dealing with a lot of surfaces, the groundwater aquifers, all the sandy and gravelly stuff, tremendous surface. So you're dealing with, microorganisms forming biofilms on those surfaces. And so the book deals with those fundamentals. And then with all those fundamentals in place, then it starts to go through the major classes of pollutants that can be biotransformed. Major pollutants, we're interested in them for human health or ecosystem health reasons, and they can be biotransformed. So you go through the basic ones like petroleum hydrocarbons, like from gasoline and and oils, and then you move into some of the aromatic hydrocarbons. Then we move into ones that are chlorinated and nitros, things some of the solvents and things that we use, or things that are in energetics or explosives. And I end up with a little bit on some of the fluorinated compounds, which are a really hot topic these days. So, but when you have the foundation in place, then you can understand how to look at the more specific applications of them. So that's how I structure it.
Very good, very good. I really liked it because, well, you can actually go straight to what you need, right? You can read the basics, and then you pick the right reaction that you're looking for. That's very good. That's very good. Thank you. So to whom your book is targeted, or better, what is the wider audience that you believe it may be useful for?
Yeah, so I think it's, broadly speaking, the target audience is the people who want to get started in understanding how to do biotransformations or bioremediation. I'm going to give you an example. I have a new PhD student going to start in January, and she asked me, what should I do to prepare? So I said, well, this book is coming out soon. It'll be perfect for you, because she's an environmental engineer. She knows something, but she's not an expert at all in biotransformations, and she needs to become. And so it's perfect for her to really build the foundation and then, step forward, in her particular area on it. So someone who is, for example, a beginning PhD student is good, or a practitioner, say a practitioner who is going to be doing projects for clients where they have to do bioremediation of it. And they want to do it right. They want to actually understand how the microorganisms work and how we can work with them. It's perfect for them. I think one doesn't need to be definitely doesn't need to be a specialist going in. You do need to have basic knowledge of basic chemistry and basic math skills, to be able to do it. But you don't need to be a specialist going in.
Good. How I feel when I see all these books coming from the Groundwater Project. So, I feel so bad that I didn't have them when I was on my PhD.
It would have been good, yes. Yeah, these are really valuable, and the range of things is quite amazing. So it is
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and like I told you, I had to do a literature review on biotransformations, and now you had it done for me years later. That's very good. Thank you. So, as you mentioned, but out of curiosity, would you believe that science may find biotic transformation to the so-called forever chemicals? How likely is it, or unlikely?
Yeah. So the answer is yes and no. So first of all, let's define the forever compounds. These are the so-called PFAS, per and polyfluorinated alkyl substances. So alkyl substances mean these are chains of carbons, and they're fluorinated. So they've got a number of fluorine substituents located along the carbon chain. So the terminology per and polyfluoro is very important. So the term perfluoro means that every location on the molecule that could possibly have a fluorine substituent has one. So there's a PFOA, perfluorooctanoic acid, one of the most common ones, has 8 carbons. and it can have 15 fluorines, and it has 15 fluorines. So every single location has a fluorine. A polyfluorinated one, if it were the same general structure, would have fewer than 15. You would have somewhat less. Now, this is an important distinction, very important distinction. The perfluoro compounds are unlikely to be directly biodegradable. I mean, the carbon fluorine bond is very strong. The fact that the molecule is completely covered with the fluorine means that the enzymes that the microorganisms might use can't really even find a place to start. I mean, and they don't have a starting location. It's like this giant moat around the molecule. And so I think the perfluorinated ones are not going to be biodegradable. The polyfluorinated ones, if removed enough fluorines, will be biodegradable. We know that. I mean, we know that from the literature, and we know it from my team's research. By the way, this is one of my team's big research areas on it, so I know quite a lot. And so the answer for perfluorinated compounds is directly no. However, if we can convert them from perfluorinated to polyfluorinated, then you can get the biodegradation reaction to start. So in our team, we do something called reductive defluorination. It's not a biological process; it's a chemically catalyzed process to remove a few of the fluorines and replace them with hydrogen, and then the compounds become biodegradable, and the microorganisms can then get a foothold on the molecule, and they can start to break it down. They can continue defluorinating it, and you can end up completely mineralizing the compound on that. So we have to do what I call give our friends a little help, our friends are the microorganisms, and we give them a little help by using this chemical catalytic approach to knock off some of the fluorines. So it's no longer perfluorinated, and then they can take over and do the job.
Oh, that's nice. Good to hear. Good to hear. So, are you trying something in a porous medium already?
No, we haven't tried this in porous medium. Right now, we're just trying it in water.
Okay.
I mean, the principle would work anywhere.
Yeah,
I mean, it'd be harder to do it in an aquifer in situ, but the principle works in any place. So I could see that we could do this down the road. Yeah.
Very good, very good. I'm very glad to hear that, and I'm very glad with your publication. Congratulations for your book. Thank you very much for participating in the groundwater project. Please make your final considerations.
Well, I hope that the folks who have interest in biotransformations, and particularly in the groundwater setting, will take advantage of the book. I think it's meant to be an important stepping stone, for someone to go from not really knowing too much, but being interested, to having a strong foundation, and then being able to become as much of a specialist as he or she needs to be for their studies or for their job in the field.
Thank you very much. Was very glad to meeting you and your nice book. Like I told you, I missed your book many years ago, or even meeting you then. That would be very fun. Thank you very much. Congratulations again for your great work, and it's going to be a success for sure. Thank you.
For sure. Okay. Thank you very much, Everton. Have a good day.
Bye. You too. Bye.
Bye now.